We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. It's July 27th, 2023. On my right is Commissioner Kevin Cook, who represents District 2. And on my left is Commissioner Aaron Mays, who represents District 3. I'm Bill Rippon, and I represent District 1. Stephanie, what's first on the agenda?
1, Proclamation Presentation A, Special Investigation Program Update.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Gage, District Attorney. Thank you for your time this morning. This specific presentation is in response to a question raised by Commissioner Cook during the budget presentation. With me today is Brad Barrett, who handles special investigations for our office with an emphasis in the area of human trafficking. Since you have provided support for that position, I have been very pleased with his progress and the impact it's had on area law enforcement, both from an operational perspective, but also from a training perspective. And ultimately, the objective is to catch people who are engaging in this type of behavior, and we have been successful in doing that as well. So with more details, I'll ask Brad to come up here and brief you. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brad Barrett, investigator with the Shawnee County DA's office. So we'll go ahead and start our presentation. So first, we'll go through some of the objectives of our program. Number one priority is to assist with investigations into child exploitation and human trafficking crimes. Those are very close to really, there's a nexus between the two, obviously, if you read the statutory language. Next is intelligence resource for law enforcement. We also coordinate the Kaw Valley Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, as well as sponsor training. Participate in the Kansas Human Trafficking Advisory Board. Follow up with investigations on other felony level cases that need additional information for successful prosecution, as well as our new electronic storage detection program, which I will cover at the end of this PowerPoint. So first, with child exploitation and human trafficking investigations, there's a lot of ways we can assist other agencies. One of the primary ways, which is something exclusive to the DA's office, is the inquisition process. That's how we issue subpoenas to get information and records. Usually we'll do this for any investigation. What we've done different here is that we're proactively issuing these out, as well as looking into the information ourselves and then following the trail. A lot of times you can serve an inquisition or open an inquisition, serve a subpoena, and then you get more information, we need to issue another subpoena. You just keep following that trail until you get the information that we need for our case. Next is utilize intelligence resources to further investigate crimes. This is combining resources from other agencies as well as some new ones we've invested in, which I'll cover in the next slide. Utilize intelligence resources to further investigate crimes, as I just covered. Assist with locating high-risk runaways. That's the request of other agencies if they need assistance, especially if there's indications of possible exploitation or human trafficking. Interviewing witnesses and victims. And this next is just a quick stat. This includes cases that, from everything from human trafficking, child exploitation, follow-up investigations on felony-level cases that enter our office. As you can see, 21, 15, and then 22 and 23, 38 and 19 as of 7/26 at 23. One example I want to throw out here real quick, we had a local police department reach out to it and say, hey, we don't have time to investigate this real quick, but someone gave us a tip that there's an individual at a hotel and they believe she's involved in prostitution. Well, through our intelligence resources, we were able to identify who this individual was. She ended up having a felony warrant out of another jurisdiction. We make contact, use that felony warrant as a reason for contact, and end up getting her in an interview, setting her up with victim services. And although, yes, she'd have to answer for that felony warrant on an unrelated crime, we're able to get her set up with victim services through the Department of Corrections, who has another partnership with a victim service provider that offers services to these possible human trafficking victims. And so we'll go on to the next slide. So next is law enforcement intelligence. So this is trying to be an asset to local, state, and federal law enforcement. So what we've done is pulled resources from the Sheriff's Office, pulled resources, intel resources from PD, as well as the federal government, and invested in our own, and have been able to assist law enforcement agencies with doing a background on cases that they need more information on to successfully investigate. One example here is a resource that we have invested in, where we did 332 searches in the period of 1 year. And it had 212 of those cases brought us some kind of information that we didn't have before. Just an example of this, though, this app or this software charged per how many certified law enforcement the agency had. because we only have 4 sworn at the DA's office, we were able to get it for 1/10 less of a price than if a primary law enforcement agency invested in that same software. All right, next is the Kaw Valley Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, as well as training coordination. So this is a task force that we created here in our office, and we joined with the Sheriff's Office, Police Department, and 10 agencies total, ranging from state to local law enforcement. And when we first started this, we really thought the primary reason was for sharing resources, sharing personnel, bringing people over. But what's been a very just amazing resource is just sharing the intelligence. You know, one agency may be working on the same case, bring it up and be like, we've dealt with that same person a month ago. So that it's a very valuable resource for that. Another valuable resource of the task force is to coordinate and sponsor training. For law enforcement a little over a year ago, teaming up with the Sheriff's Office, teaming up with PD, we all chipped in to pay for a training company to come down that's very well known and very effective in training on human trafficking. We were able to sponsor that for free for other law enforcement agencies. And coming up, we're actually working on another training that's going to focus on child exploitation. And with this training, we're going to involve active Kansas law enforcement ranging from local to federal level. And it's going to be some very high-class training for free that we're going to be able to offer to area law enforcement. For community training, we've been able to help 501 USD, the paras. We trained them, brought in a company to show them the dangers and what indicators of child exploitation are. At the sheriff camp, we sponsored an organization to come in to speak with the kiddos about the dangers of child exploitation online. And then as well as community outreach, I had the opportunity to speak with Washburn University students about trafficking here locally in the Shawnee County area, as well as attending local human trafficking events, including a legislative event where we spoke with state legislators about the dangers of trafficking and how it appears here in Kansas. Another cool add-on with the task force is bringing in victim service providers, because the most important thing we can do is get these victims help. Even if we can't get a case, if we can get them on a different path, that's a win all day. And then finally, we have applied for the OVC Fiscal Year 23 Enhanced Collaborative Model Task Force to Combat Human Trafficking Grant. We're still waiting to hear back on this grant, but if successfully funded, it would fund a full-time Sheriff's Office investigator, a full-time intel analyst, and a full-time human trafficking coordinator. On the victim service provider side, it would give additional funds to them to work on enhancing their day services, as well as getting some kind of program set up to assist human trafficking victims. All right, moving on to the Kansas Human Trafficking Advisory Board. Prior to 2023, we participated in the Law Enforcement Subcommittee. In 2023, Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach appointed me to the board, and so they have a 4-pronged approach: prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. We still participate in some subcommittees, including the Law Enforcement and Legislative Subcommittee. One goal of our office personally is to discuss the regulation of the massage business industry to deter illicit massage businesses, also known as IMBs. The reason for this is Kansas is only one of 3 states left in the country that has no statewide regulation over the massage business industry. Because of this, if you want to be a massage therapist tomorrow in Kansas and you're not in a jurisdiction that has some kind of code, congratulations, you're a massage therapist. And so because of that, we want to get some kind of discussion started on getting some kind of statewide regulation to prevent these massage businesses from coming in, illicit massage businesses, and giving a bad name to legitimate massage therapists who have to deal with this stuff on a daily basis. All right, so follow-up investigations. Now you may ask the question, why does our office do follow-up investigations? Well, usually it's a 2-part reason. First off, new information comes to light after a case has been submitted. And then secondly, potentially patrol work the case and there's no assigned detective follow-up. Maybe that detective retired or was promoted. Or maybe it's just time sensitive, we need it done now. A few examples of this include like an alibi defense, new witnesses pop up, more detailed interviews are needed. And a quick example of this is we had a domestic violence case that's already been resolved now, but it came through our office. The charging attorney looked at it. When he was reading the officer's report, officer did a great job. It was worked by patrol. The problem is in that report he noticed that the victim had mentioned her throat being grabbed, but she didn't note if it was strangulation, what it was. So we were able to do follow-up and figure out, okay, did you lose consciousness? And then other indicators that as investigators we're trained to look at to see, there's a difference between the misdemeanor domestic battery, or is this aggravated battery? Does this guy need to be put to prison? And so that's just another example of how these follow-up investigations have been very helpful to our office. All right, the newest thing we're going to be talking about today is the Electronic Storage Detection Canine Program. We're very excited about this. As you'll see below, this is a partnership between Operation Underground Railroad and our office. This kind of started with, we had a conversation with OUR about what kind of technology they could offer us because they sponsor local law enforcement. The technology they went through, because local law enforcement is so they work so well together, there were already resources we had. So a few weeks later, the OUR representative reached out and said, hey, we have this electronic storage detection canine program. We have 100 dogs we've put out so far across the world, and we have none in Kansas. And this has worked particularly well in DA's offices, so we wanted to see if you're interested. Well, brought the idea to District Attorney Kage. Because he likes ideas that are outside the box and saw the potential, we went for it. And so now we can discuss that very briefly. So first, what are the benefits of the ESD Canine Unit? So this is to assist local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies with locating electronic storage devices commonly hidden by child predators who are producing and or possessing child sexual abuse material, also known as CSAM. Some subpoints I wanted to make on this is we want to make sure we get all the evidence. So these dogs can smell the chemical that's on storage devices, anything from SD cards to laptops, phones, little GPS devices, and this helps us do the search to make sure we get everything out of the house. And there's two sides you can look at this. On the first side, let's say we can't find anything, and there's a hidden USB drive located in a pen or something such as that. This dog can help us find that. On the other end, let's say that we have all the evidence we need. Well, if you're the father of that child that's being exploited, you want to make sure we do our best to get everything, not just what we need. The second is a GPS tracker, and I put new statute example. This was new language added to the stalking statute, where now it's become such an issue. The Kansas legislature has involved the language of using tracking devices or the data from it to track someone you're stalking, or maybe like a domestic violence victim. These dogs can actually locate those devices as small as they are, so we can utilize that to help victims. They can also be used as comfort dogs for children during forensic interviews and trials. If any of you have had to see the unfortunate event of a child testify in front of his abuser or his or her abuser, it's one of the saddest things in the world. So having those dogs available to be a comfort dog to them in itself is priceless. Next, that's great for office morale. I'm sure DAKA can talk about. We haven't even got Canine Goose yet, but the office is very excited about it. And with the stress they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, it's a great add-on. And then last, but certainly not least, it was paid for by Operation Underground Railroad. So let's cover what they paid for. So Operation Underground Railroad paid for the acquisition of the canine. They are going to pay for the initial certification fees for the handler, travel to and from, including gas, hotel. OUR approved gear, and one key gear they paid out of that was a secondary crate we can store the dog in for transporting purposes. That's test rated. It was over $800 kennel, and they just bought it without flinching. They want to support us. They're also going to continue to pay for annual recertification fees. Now, this was a total approximate cost to them of $22,000. That's what it cost OUR, who's put over 100 of these dogs out. If we want to do something similar, I'm sure our costs would be much higher because they've been able to get the prices down and save where they can. So with that, Commissioners, I say thank you for your support. Thank you for your help on this. We believe we're making we know we're making a very big impact, and we want to continue to do so. In the photo, you'll see Canine Goose, and I stand for any questioning.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Brad.
Great work.
All right. Next item,
Item 3, consent agenda.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner,
Yes.
I did have one amendment I'd like to
Okay.
make. Could we, I know we have a motion on the table, but I'd like to remove item 3F from the consent agenda and just defer that to another day.
3F.
I'd make that motion I guess you have a motion on it.
Well, let me withdraw my motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we remove 3F today and do that a different day.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item. Oh, I'm sorry.
Now
Let's finish this
I'll
item.
make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that. So, motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item 4, new business. A, County Councilor number 1. Consider approval of resolution number 2023-49, providing property tax relief for Mark Gomez and Brenda Smart pursuant to Shawnee County Resolution Number 2023-32 on their property located at 3317 Southwest Abbey Drive, which was destroyed by fire.
Morning, Commissioners. We're asking the Board adopt the resolution which would provide property tax relief to Mr. Mark A. Gomez and Ms. Brenda M. Smith as authorized by KSA 791613. Part of the reason why we put it on the agenda where we did was they're closing on the property, they're selling the property, and the closing date is the 31st, which is next Monday. So we wanted to put it before the correction orders, just so we could do it all today, if that makes sense. Otherwise, if you have any questions, I'll answer those.
Questions?
I don't have any questions. I would move for approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item B1, County Clerk, consider all voucher payments.
Commissioners, this morning we have vouchers that total $2,990,877.12. The highlights out of that voucher report under County Project Equipment Fund Elections Commissioner, Alltech Communications Incorporated totaling $18,800 is for cameras at the elections office. Under the Equipment Fund, KBS Constructors Incorporated for $26,346, renovations of courtrooms 308 and 312. And under Solid Waste Recycling, the Rarig Pacific Company totaling $44,715.64 for refuse totes. Other things to note is what makes up the majority of the voucher report is payroll at $1,299,498.22. Health insurance for our employees of $127,882.05, and then holding accounts with the state of Kansas of $210,406.83. I don't have any questions regarding the voucher report and would move for its approval.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Number 2, consider correction orders.
I would move that we approve the correction orders.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Item C, Emergency Management. Number 1, consider approval of the 2023 First Responder Grant Awards in the amount of $59,027.17.
Morning, Commissioners. Nelson Castile, Ambulance Compliance Officer. This is our yearly approval of the First Responder Grant Program. The monies for this program come about from the penalties and fines that AMR pays for the various contract issues that they have, response times or any on-time percentage or anything like that. This year there was $59,027.17 available on June 1 when the resolution says that we need to open it up. We met with the fire chiefs, had a very cordial and short meeting, and they came up with the amounts that was provided in your packet. The amounts provided in your packet will be providing training equipment, real-world equipment, stuff that they can use on a regular basis out in the field, and will also pay for the software program, Crew Force, and as well as a VPN called NetMotion that they're going to have to start paying on as well to have access to certain programs out of the dispatch center. I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions? Not, I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Next item.
Item D, Public Works. Number 1, consider awarding a bid to Sunflower Paving, Inc. of Lawrence, Kansas for a road construction project in Timber Ridge subdivision at a cost of $166,939, and authorization and execution of contract C-235-2023 for same. All costs for the project will be temporarily funded via a benefit district created under Resolution 2023-8. Ultimately, the balance of the project costs, which are bonded, will be equally assessed against the 11 lots included in the benefit district.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. Back on May 25th, I came before you asking you to reject some bids that we received for essentially a prior incarnation of this project. At that time, it involved pavement work, grading work, storm sewer, and it might have even had fresh water distribution. The bids came in above the engineer's estimate by a substantial margin, so we went back to the developer. The developer removed everything from the project except the street project work, paving, curb and gutter, et cetera. The remaining work that was removed will be paid for directly by the developer. So here I'm before you asking you to accept a bid that we received on July 5th. We actually received 2 bids, but 1 bid was incomplete. So I'm here before you asking you to accept, authorize, and execute this contract for construction. It looks like a great bid, and with that, I welcome your questions.
Questions?
Sure we got all the lots?
We have all the lots that I know of. There was included in your packet was a map, and I believe all the appropriate lots were included.
All right, thank you. I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Number 2, consider a request to issue requests for qualification for engineering design and construction engineering services for a bridge replacement project on Southwest Jordan Road over a tributary to the Wacousa River. Funding in full or in part will come from the county bridges, portion of the 2017-2031 countrywide half-cent sales tax program.
Courtney House, Director of Public Works. Although our budget this year hasn't been approved, I have already talked about in our budget presentation about our 5-year CIP. This project is included in the 5-year CIP. It's scheduled for a 2026 construction. But as you know, it takes time to prepare letting plans and specifications. There is a possibility that this project could be selected for off-system bridge program funds through KDOT. And if that project is selected, the letting would move up 1 year. So we are getting prepared, and we want to bring a consultant on board to prepare design and construction plans and specifications. With that, again, I look forward to your questions.
The bridge that you're replacing, is it narrower than this?
Well,
What type of
actually,
bridge is
the
it?
narrowness is not a real issue. I mean, I looked in here, it's 27.9 feet, and the bridge that we would replace it with is probably 28 feet, but that's not really the reason we're replacing this bridge. It has a sundry number of problems, but the bridge width is not one of them.
It's falling apart. Yeah.
It's like some erosion concerns
Falling apart.
also. I mean,
Yep.
it's, it looks like it needs to be replaced. Is it totally safe to drive on still though, right? Or
Oh,
is it
absolutely.
Weight restricted or anything like that?
Absolutely. If,
Okay.
there was any danger to the public, I would have that bridge closed.
Okay.
I'll move for approval.
I will second. Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Next item.
Item E, Department of Corrections. Number 1, request approval of contract C 236-2023 with KBS Constructors, Inc. for the design work associated with the construction of a mental health unit within adult detention center.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. Back in June, earlier this year, the Shawnee County Department of Corrections unanimously approved to award the bid and qualifications to KBS with the architect of HTK for the development and construction of a new behavioral health care unit at the Shawnee County Department of Corrections. This is in working closely with Jim Crowell in his office and looking at trying to do a 2-contract phase, should I say, when it comes to this. The one of them would be the contract for the design of the facility. That this is an extensive and thorough process that would take place between HTK, the Shawnee County Department of Corrections, obviously Jim Crowell's office, and with our partner of dealing with a behavioral health consultant on dealing with the design of the facility. That we are asking for the agreement today to be able to go into our design of the facility, which at that time, hopefully, we'll get to the point to where we can get to a guaranteed maximum price, and then be able to start looking towards the construction and things like that. That this has been a tremendous work and effort over many years of getting us to the point of something that is drastically needed at the Department of Corrections and for our community. I can deliver a tremendous amount of stats on the importance of such a facility. I've been one of the leaders in the community and the region regarding behavioral health and the corrections. So this is the time to be able to start taking our vision and start turning it into reality. And would ask Stan for any questions that you may have.
I'll move for approval of the design.
No. Yeah.
Question.
Well, I don't know if it's a question so much as just to say, you know, Brian, this is, I mean, the estimates that we've gotten so far, the money that we approved is definitely not enough to pay for this facility. We are actively seeking out other sources of funding for this as well, from the state and the federal government as well. And we do see this as sort of an innovative approach, something that's very well needed, that's going to be a regional asset, not just for Shawnee County, but for Northeast Kansas in general. And so I think this is a big step towards accomplishing something that's going to actually work to help mental health in our community.
Absolutely, and you know, Major Phelps and I have already met with partners with the state of Kansas, and we've had some very good positive talks. We have another meeting coming up here in about 2 weeks, again, to speak with them regarding a plan of you know, number one, the importance of the project, the partnership of a pilot program to be able to look at the restoration and competency restoration here in Shawnee County, using this as a regional aspect to help smaller communities or counties around us, and also, and furthermore, to help with the courts, the expediting of cases here in Shawnee County. And instead of waiting, you know, 6, 7 months, 8 months to get them to Larned, maybe we're able to do that. But trust me when I say this is not just brick and mortar. This also includes, you know, will also facilitate the actual program that we will have in this facility, and that we already have a lot of the pieces already in place. We just don't have the space or the program infrastructure. So I do know the representative of KBS and HTK here. I'm very excited about this to get a hard hat somewhere down the road when we ever get to the point to where we can put a shovel in the ground and do this. But this is the first step, and we're working very closely with Jim Crowell and looking at this approach and of a design. Come back, then we would go to the construction. So yes.
Appreciate it.
So you had the motion,
I
correct?
seconded.
Yep. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item.
Item F, Parks and Recreation. Number 1, consider the request to reclassify 4 positions and create 5 new positions. The reclassification include elevating the existing grounds maintenance supervisor and natural area supervisor to Park District Manager, District 1 and 2. Elevating the existing facilities supervisor to a facilities manager, and reclassifying the natural areas steward to a park maintenance and field supervisor. The new position will include a park maintenance field supervisor position, a maintenance lead worker position, and 3 maintenance tech positions. Sufficient funding is available in the department's operating budget to cover these requests.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. I realize that's kind of hard to see, but I'll blow it up here if I need to moving forward. So what I'm asking you today is to do, we are wanting to reclassify several positions. Some of these positions are positions that we've had available or open for really since I've been here. One of them, we had an HVAC position, we've had an aquatics programmer position. So what we want to try to do is reclassify those to positions we think we can fill. And we're also moving to a district format, I'll call it. So with District 1, and this is all park maintenance, this side of the department, District 1 would be housed at Gage, Park and the maintenance compound there. District 2 would be working out of Lake Shawnee. We've taken our horticulture division and divided it into two and split it up between those two districts. And this is a process of trying to really make both of those districts as equal as we can with resources. We think this will improve efficiencies, will cut down on windshield time. It will make it more understandable to not only our staff but the public who to go to when we have issues. As we split Topeka in half, we're still fine tuning that where that division will be because we want to make sure that we distribute the workload as evenly as we can. But if there's an issue in District 1, you would go to Tom Hammer, and Tom Hammer will take care of it because he controls everything in District 1. You're no longer having to figure out who's responsible for this and who's responsible for that. You've got one point of contact. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know this is a pretty, there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I think this is a good move. I like splitting it up. It's just too big a territory to try to move with one army. And I've always thought this would be a good situation to do this.
Thank you.
Very good. So that I will move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Number 2, consider approval of the following. A, authorization and execution of contract C 237-2023 with the Gage Park Improvement Authority and Shawnee County Parks and Recreation to outline the terms and conditions regarding the development of a master plan for the preservation, development improvement, and maintenance of Gage Park, and B, request to bid for a master plan for Gage Park.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. Before we move on, I failed to thank HR on that previous item. I worked very closely with Angela and Mike both, and they were a tremendous help. So I just didn't want to fail to acknowledge them in that process. Gage Park Master Plan. So we have talked about this as part of our CIP and other items, and we've been discussing actually a Gage Park Master Plan all the way back to 2018 before I got here. So what we're proposing here is, one, to enter into an MOU with the Gage Park Improvement Authority, which essentially, and I do have Tammy Cortez and Elizabeth Johnson here with the Gage Park Improvement Authority. Essentially, this MOU is an understanding between them and the county that the authority is willing to match up to $100,000 how much we are going to spend on this master plan. So, and then the other portion of it would be paid out of the county's share of the Gage Park Improvement Authority funds. So there would technically be no money coming out of our budget, out of our Parks and Recreation budget, be fully funded through Gage Park Improvement Authority. The plan, the outcomes will include identifying and improving utilities, trail connections, and amenities, incorporating the master plans of the Discovery Center and the zoo within the park, and developing a conservancy and a business plan, outlining the strengths and weaknesses and opportunities of this highly historic and wonderful park, Gage Park. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I think this is overdue. There's building, it seems like, continuously going on out of Gage Park, and really we don't have a roadmap, so this will be good. So I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor? Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Next item.
Number 3, consider authorization and execution of contract C 238-2023 with Don Dillinger Construction for the design build construction fee with a guaranteed maximum price yet to be determined. The 8% design builder's fee is estimated not to exceed $320,000. The proposed budget for the project is $4,000 and set to be funded by the issuance of capital projects bonding.
I think it's 4 million.
4 million, sorry.
We've really trimmed it down. Tim Laurent, Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. Yeah, this is essentially, we have been working on this project now for some time with non-linear construction and PEC. And we have, this is essentially asking permission to pay them a portion of what they're due, 8%, for the design services that they've already provided. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And so, Tim, do you anticipate that we're very close to maybe a final guaranteed maximum price?
That's a good question. I think, I thought you were going to ask me if we're close to finalizing some designs. I think that we are. We have a meeting today at 1 o'clock to look at some new designs and some enhancements to old designs. And so I think we're getting close to finalizing that, and I believe that will be obviously key to moving forward. But I don't think we'll be able to come back here for a guaranteed maximum price until we've actually picked a final design. And I think we are getting close. We do have a tentatively scheduled another public engagement at Oakland Community Center, and that will be on August 15th, I believe.
I understand that we had over 1,600 or so responses to the survey, and we're going to be able to take those results and incorporate that into our final design.
Absolutely, yes. We ended up with over 1,700 responses, which is tremendous. I mean, I don't think I've ever been involved in another survey where we've had that kind of turnout. So, and have you seen, we've had a lot of feedback on social media. We had a lot of folks turn out that day for our first public engagement. So I think we've gotten some great feedback, and it is definitely driving the designs for this sort of second iteration. So we're getting closer.
I would say that the quantity of the feedback was great. However, the content of the feedback was relatively negative from what I saw. And I mean, I realize we don't have a design yet, like a final design, but I mean, is it time to do this when we don't have a design and it seems that the public is not real happy with what they've seen so far?
Sure. Well, I think we're dealing with that. I think that here's how I foresee this moving forward. That we'll meet today. They've been instructed to sort of finalize a couple of different designs. We have a splash park design that we think is tremendous. And so we're pretty much leaving that alone. They are designing sort of a hybrid between a splash park and a pool, and then they're designing a new pool design. And my thought is that we'll roll all three of these out at this next public engagement and probably just ask people what their preference is. I think that it is important that we make sure we do everything we can for them to really understand the pros and cons of each layout and give them a feeling for what those are. I think that when we went through this first phase, I don't think they really understood the scope or the size of the splash park that we were discussing. And quite honestly, the pool design left something to be desired. So I think we're going to fix both of those issues and make sure they've got as much information as they can possibly get, and then we'll ask them what they prefer. I think that's to me, that's the only logical way we can move forward. And then once that happens, then we'll be able to figure out that guaranteed maximum price for whatever it is we pick, and then we'll come back up here and have this discussion again.
I'll move approval.
I'll second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Number 4, approval is requested to fill the vacant park police officer position, PR 1170A, at step 14, range 3, with a candidate of exceptional experience that the approval compensation is $22.83 per hour, or $68,180.59 annually, including benefits.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So this officer has worked for us in the past. He's currently working for us now as at a permanent part-time position. He has all the training necessary. He's been through the academy. It's things that we struggle to find applicants who have all of that when we want to hire them. So we typically have to incur that expense and time. So with that background and with the training that he already has, we would like to start him at step 3. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Move to approve.
Second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Number 5, consider the authorization and execution of contract C-239-2023 with Exxon International to be the sole source provider for the Flex 2 body cameras, docking stations, evidence.com storage, and related licenses, miscellaneous operating equipment. The new contract eliminates services not used by the department, as well as provides an upgrade in equipment cameras, $5,846.16 annually for each of the 5 years, for a total of $29,230.79.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation. So the Sheriff's Department and the District Attorney's Office use these cameras, are familiar with these cameras. We were trying to be consistent between the agencies. That's why this is, we used a sole source on this, worked with Betty Griner to make that happen. And by locking in this agreement now, we foresee there being some savings. And also, we are getting rid of some of the services that we were paying for in the original contract that we were not using. And so with that money, we've been able to upgrade the cameras under the new contract and be happy to answer any questions. I do have Chief Cope here as well if there's anything I can't answer.
Questions?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next item.
Item G, Human Resources. Number 1, request to approve the 2024 Teamsters wages for Parks and Recreation and Department of Correction Bargaining Unit. Contract C-240-2023, addendum to the 2022-2024 Master Parks Employees, and Contract C-241-2023, addendum to the 2022-2024 Master Correction Employees.
Good morning, Commissioners. Angela Lewis with Human Resources. I have Mike Scribner, the Teamsters President, here with us today. We'd like to first start by thanking everyone who was involved in the negotiations for the 2024 wages for Parks and Recreation and the DOC. Just to make sure you have all the informations of what was added to this addendum, it was for wages. And the Parks and Rec addendum gives a 3% scale change increase in the applicable step for 2024. The DOC addendum gives a 3% scale increase and an applicable step for the classification of custodian and maintenance technician. The classifications of corrections specialist 1, 2, and 3 receive a 1% scale change increase in the applicable step for 2024. Additionally, the base pay amount for each step will be increased by $6 to replace the $6 as currently Teamsters correction pay differential. Mike or I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Thank everybody for their hard work on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll move to approve.
I will second. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Angela.
Thank you.
Next item.
Item H, Weed Department. Number 1, request approval to purchase 2 2023 John Deere utility vehicles utilizing a state purchasing contract and sell 2 2020 John Deere utility vehicles to Stormontville Event Center for trade and value.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Landon, Director of the Weed Department. This morning, I'm requesting approval to enter into an agreement with Heritage Tractor to purchase two UTVs utilizing the Kansas State side-by-side contract. These UTVs are a vital part of what we use to treat noxious weeds. They allow us to get in areas that we normally wouldn't take a pickup truck. A lot of the levee systems all around Topeka. Also, they'll be equipped with rollover protection, all the safety equipment that the other ones have. Staff will remove the existing sprayers out of that, transfer them over to the new ones. We're also requesting to transfer over to Stormont Vale Event Center the old ones at the trade-in price that John Deere had offered. Kellen and Matt both are here to answer any questions you might have on that part, but I do believe these units are, in great shape and will fulfill a lot of their needs at Stormont Vale. The existing lighting package will remain on the units for their parking lot safety and all that. So one is equipped with a snow plow and a sander to help with any snow and ice removal that they might have left. And Commissioners, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I just might say, John, thanks for realizing they were looking for this type of equipment that saves some money.
You're welcome. I believe it's a win-win for everybody. The big difference for us is between the 835s and the 825s is it's one step ahead. It's a little wider unit, gives us a little more stability on those slopes, and so I believe it was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, certainly encourage all other departments to be resourceful like that and try and figure out ways we can work together to save a little money. I can tell Kellen and Matt look pretty excited back there. I think they came to get the keys already, so.
I might mention, though, Commissioners, just that it's about a 3-month build time on these new units, so we'll need to keep those units till then. Also, the billing contract for 2023 will remain the same, and it will be altered in 24 to reflect the upgraded model of that. Right, currently we bill them out at $40 an hour, and so that will increase in the 24 contract to all of our entities to do that. So I know they're excited and they're happy, but they may just have to wait just a little bit longer, or they can come treat weeds for me, whichever one they want to do. The option is theirs.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0.
Thank you,
John.
Commissioners.
Next item.
Item I, Audit Finance, number 1, June 30th, 2023 financial report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Betty Greiner, Director of Administrative Services. I'm here for the June 30 financial overview. And we will begin on the revenue side. Our total revenues through June 30 are $109,765,992. That is $1,389,647 over what was budgeted for that time period, and that is just a little bit over 1%, and that is a positive variance. We'll go through each of these different categories to look at them. Our first category is property tax revenue. We had received $92,630,981. That is $1,330,000 under what was budgeted. You'll recall the first half taxes, we were under budget by 700, almost 800,000. The second half has continued that trend, so we were off under budget again for the second half taxes. I had budgeted a delinquency rate of 1.5% for 2023, and we're having a little higher delinquency rate than that. The next category is other tax revenue, $8,401,034. That is $517,000 under budget, and that is primarily from special assessments. So that goes right along, special assessments generally go right along with property tax delinquents. delinquencies. Next is charges for services, $3,230,250. That is $471,000 under budget, and that is mostly in register of deed fees. And our last category is other revenue, $5,503,726. That is $3,700,000 over budget, and as we've been talking all year, that is associated with investment income and interest rates going up on that. Here's our pie chart. 84% of our revenue has been from property taxes, other taxes 8%, charges for services 3%, and other revenue 5%. Next, we'll go on to the expenditures. Through June 30th, we've either paid for or encumbered $59,100,038. That is $3,972 under budget, so we could not be closer to budget if we tried. But I will go in through the different categories because some of them are under budget, some of them are over budget, but our total is right on budget. Law enforcement, $29,853,089. That is actually $392,000 over budget. But there again, I think it's spread throughout the law enforcement categories, and I think from my investigation, I think it's just timing issues when things have been paid this year compared to other years. So I think that will, I don't have a concern at this point that area will end up over budget at the end of the year. Next is recreation, $10,433,159. That is $22,000 under budget, so right on budget in that category. Next, public works, $5,970,611. That is $8,000 over budget, so right on budget in that category also. Wait, I said that wrong. That was $8,000 under budget. Public health, $3,587,814. That is $470,000 under budget. We've talked about that before also. The health department has a lot of grants that they were able to shift general fund operating costs to those grants. Administrative services, $8,361,203. That is $66,000 over budget. That is spread among the different categories, so there again, I'm not concerned about that. $66,000 in this category is pretty much right on budget. And then, of course, debt service, $894,161. That's right on budget, and that is, at this point in time, still just for the interest for the first half. Here's our chart of the expenditures by category. And then our pie chart, law enforcement is 50%, recreation, and that's just for the general fund portion, is 18%. Public works, again, just for the general fund portion, is 10%. Public health, again, for the general fund portion is 6%. Admin services, 14%, and debt service is 2%. Since it is the end of the quarter, I've listed all of the different public works expenditures. They have lots of different funds that they have expenditures coming out of, their project funds, the Willard Bridge debt service, sewer districts, all of those. It totals $7,239,588, and that's for all funds. Same thing for Parks and Rec. If you look at all funds, and the total for all funds and the general fund, they have a revolving fund, they have their building maintenance fund and such. That total is $12,055,344. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions?
Not today.
Thank you, Betty. Next item.
Item J, Commission. Number 1, consider canceling the July 31st work session.
I'm going to move that we cancel the July 31st work session.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Next item.
Number 2, discussion of the capital improvement plan.
All right. Back to work.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Sauer, Deputy Financial Administrator. I believe I gave you all just an updated sheet to try and highlight the projects that have not had a proposed outcome yet, or that was not completely accounted for in our last meeting. We have, in the capital outlay fund, there are a few projects. There was $200,000 of that was deferred for Heritage Hall HVAC repair and renovations. The Parks and Rec Master Plan, the Tactical Command Vehicle, oh, that's a terrible spelling, sorry, updates, and court furniture, and the Ag Hall restroom renovations. We also still have or that has not been discussed for 2024 requests, the new debt and federal grants. There was one line that was discussed in a work session being proposed for approval, and that was for the Axon camera replacements in the grant section. So that is where we stand to start today.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't know if Kellen Sites with the Stormont Vale Event Center has an update for us on the Ag Hall and what addressing some of the facilities there might be.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Kellen Sites, Stormont Vale Event Center and OVG 360. Yes, per your request last week, we did spend quite a bit of time gathering some information. We've got some hard copy handouts for you that a lot of this information came back to us yesterday. Our operations department, as well as our chief engineer, worked side by side with some contractors to really go through and look at the restroom renovations and what all that entails. Matt Rockers, our Director of Operations, can speak much more intelligently on this project than I can, so I'm going to ask him to go through what the findings were and all that goes into renovating those restrooms in Ag Hall.
Good morning, Commissioners. Matt Rockers, Director of Operations, OVG 360. We had a kind of a short turnaround on this, so the numbers are not exactly perfect. CSM, Custom Sheet Metal, was tasked with getting us pricing for all the plumbing repairs, restroom stalls, dividers, countertops, and HVAC repairs for the restrooms only. That total came back at $169,000. Again, this is a rough estimate. They had very little time to turn this number around. New ceiling grid, tiles, lighting, paint, hand dryers, paper towel dispensers, about $25,000 for that. And then the structural issues in the northwest restroom, without any further really digging into it, they said the cost could be up to $75,000. So the total request for fixing and renovating the 4 restrooms in Ag Hall facility would come to a total of around $269,000. As you can see, I attached some photos of the exterior and interior wall in Ag Hall. That first picture is the outside exterior wall of the women's restroom on the west bathrooms. And then the next photo is the interior of that space as well as the third photo. As you can see with photos 4 and 5, those are exterior structural issues that are also on Ag Hall's list. I believe that is for 2025, 27 in our CIP budget request for those other structural concerns.
And that's for like there's pictures here of like masonry that needs to be tuck pointed or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff you're talking about.
That and the north, let's see here, it'd be in the northwest corner and northeast corner of Ag Hall are actually settling into the ground. The concrete floor has cracked and is starting to fall.
Have we looked into just the mud jacking? I mean,
Yes, so the cost that's.
That's the 75,000?
No, that was actually part of our 2027 request. I don't know what that number was, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Just, we're gonna pull it up here for you.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, $325,000 for the structural repairs, tuck jointing, concrete repairs, foundational issues there along that north end of the building.
What is this last photograph?
That is the northwest corner of Ag Hall. It's hard to tell. There's a large crack in the concrete, and that floor has started to settle. There's about a 2-inch drop, not immediate. It's just a gradual slope down where that building has started to settle to the northwest.
Are the structural issues something that can be deferred till 2027, or do they need more immediate addressing?
They haven't gotten any worse in the last 2 years. They have stopped. They haven't gotten any to the point where I think that we need to address anything. There's no trip hazards. The building is structurally sound. It's not going to fall down. It's just unfortunate settling, which part of the roof that we redid last year, addressed a lot of the water concerns that were causing some of these issues. So by putting the new roof and new drains on, that helps stop that problem.
But the bathroom facilities are original to the building when they
Correct.
were put on in at least 1988?
The 88 was the east bathrooms where the community kitchen is. I'm not sure what the date was when the bathrooms were installed on the west end. They weren't original in 1946 or 1948 when that building was built, but I'm not sure when they were put on.
But parts are hard to find and...
Non-existent. So the urinals that are in those existing restrooms are mounted into the concrete floor, so we would have to cut out all of the concrete floor to attach to the piping, tear out part of the exterior wall of that would be the southwest wall in the men's room, just to remove the urinals, and then get all the plumbing changes made. That's where a lot of the cost of this $169,000 is there's a lot of structural that you have to get around just to put an actual urinal on the wall.
I did want to mention one quick update. Last week you had talked about a couple of events that traditionally take place in that space. We have been in communication and as recently as last week and prior with the Community Thanksgiving Dinner Foundation. Our plan is to move that event down to Exhibition Hall. It allows, with the kitchen renovation, a lot more unified and strategic delivery of the service that's needed for that event, and operates at a much more efficient manner, both from an HVAC control, but also crowd control. And then we also have larger facilities, more restroom facilities for that larger type event. We are trying to take all considerations in place and make sure that the events that we can utilize into Exhibition Hall, which is a renovated space, a new space, we try and take that into consideration and move those events into those spaces if at all possible. The challenge is it's a little less cost efficient to do that from an event producer and promoter standpoint.
Yes.
Kellen, we're looking between just these structural repairs, $500,000, and we still don't have a nice facility.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm beginning to think this may be a fool's errand here. That this is just sort of like the beginning of a multi-million-dollar project that I'm not sure we need to undertake. And I know that this building is old. It's, I believe, part of the original fairgrounds from a long time ago. Is this something that maybe we could have the Parks and, or, sorry, not Parks and Rec, the Stormont Vale Event Center Advisory Board take a look at? Sorry, too many advisory boards. Not too many, they're all great. But maybe a task for them to sort of evaluate what needs to be done with Ag Hall.
Yeah.
And if it's worthwhile to make these investments. I mean, if we can relocate events out of there and put them in Heritage Hall, which
Yeah.
across the parking lot, I mean, it's not as big, but it's a nicer venue, or even in Manor, which I know you guys don't operate, but I think it's something we need to probably look into just a little bit deeper than what this is. I don't know that I'm willing to make these expenditures right now.
Commissioner Mays, I appreciate your comments about, what we invest the money into. At the same time, as long as Shawnee County owns Ag Hall, as long as we are renting it to the public, I think the public should have some expectation that when they have an event there, that the facilities work, toilets flush, aren't overflowing, aren't completely disgusting when you walk in. Because that attaches a reputation not just to the Stormont Vale Event Center, but to Shawnee County as a whole as to how we maintain our facilities. And so I think that my original request was just to look at what's it going to take for us to address some of the plumbing and toiletry issues and getting those to a usable, presentable fashion, maybe not to the extent of $169,000, but at least where if we're renting out the facility for family events, for community events, for programmed events, that the public isn't going to be turned off by the facilities.
So you're saying like a deep cleaning and a paint job type of a thing, or?
Toilets that flush, don't overflow. Basic expectations of what you would have for a facility. And it's not a mark on Stormont Vale Event Center or OVG 360, and I don't want it to be that I'm being negative of their operations, but it's an aged facility. Parts that are original, at least back to 1988, if not earlier, parts that we can't get or repair or replace. So, I don't know. Matt, do you have is there a middle ground to address the immediate concerns and then having the advisory board look at long-range use of the facility?
The immediate concerns, as far as the bathrooms are concerned, is definitely still replacing the stools. I mean, dividers can be painted, they're not very functional, I mean, they're warped, doors don't close appropriately. But if you're just talking about functional, fully functional, 100% great toilets, then yes, we can back some of this out. I will point out that Ag Hall, the west restrooms, have never even had air conditioning installed in them. That was part of this request, or part of this total as well, was just to add AC to those west bathrooms. They've always had heat, but they've never even had air conditioning. So yes, there is a scaled back version that we could look at. What I was told was just look at a renovation of those 4 rooms. So that's why we came back with this all-in price.
What would a scaled back version look like? Or is that even feasible at this time?
If you remove the stalls, dividers, don't take into consideration the structural issues. You're probably in the 125,000 range for toilets, paint, some new light fixtures, AC, replace the furnace that is from the 1980s. You know, we could cut about half of this request down and do more of a bare minimum type situation.
Commissioner Mays, do you think you can go along with $125,000 immediate, address some of the issues, and then we have the advisory board look at the long-range plan for the ag hall?
It still seems like a lot of money. I mean, if all we're gonna do, I mean, if we just need to fix.
Then the alternative is to shut it down.
Well, do you know how many days was this venue used last year?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I can tell you we've reviewed the financial performance of that space, and I don't want to focus our attention on the financial performance, but you know that space does not really generate any substantial revenues. I know it is a space that has primarily been used for a lot of MPO and community activity. And those are certainly areas we can look to readjust those calendar schedules and move them into different spaces for that same type of content. You know, there are some pretty routine events that take place in that space, like gem and mineral shows and some kind of holistic healing convention shows and things of that nature. But I mean, it's more of a community space building, not a you know, not an exhibition or convention type space anymore, really.
And again, just where I come back to is, as long as we are operating the facility, as long as we are opening it to the public should have some expectation that toilets work.
Do the toilets not work?
The toilets work for the most part, yes. It is an older system, to Matt's point and Commissioner Cook's point. The plumbing for those restrooms is a bit older, right? We deal with issues like you know, collection under the plumbing that we have to treat on a routine and regular basis. You know, they weren't built with the same trap systems and ventilation systems like they are now. So there are challenges that the restrooms currently pose, but for the most part, yes, the restrooms and the toilets work. We do have the occasional issue, and that's not just with you know, Ag Hall. That's with any restroom on our campus where, you know, we have patrons that flush items that are not supposed to be flushed down a toilet and cause backup, and you know, those are areas that we address those concerns on a pretty routine basis.
So when was the last time we had like somebody come out and snake the sewer out there? I mean, is that the problem?
No.
Is the sewer line backed up? Or?
No, that is not the issue. Really, you've got gang toilets, so you've got, you know, 12 toilets in a row. Unfortunately, the sewer line that feeds off of those toilets into the main is not really sized appropriately. Those toilets, if you get a larger event, like
Fiesta Coronation Ball.
Fiesta Coronation Ball, where you've got, you know, 1,000 or 800 people in there all at once, you're going to be using those toilets heavily for a 4 or 5 hour window. That amount of solids and fluids and in that size of pipe, just it restricts it. It restricts it. Several of those toilets are leaking. They have, you know, faulty seals. There's no more seals that we can buy. Every time one of those starts leaking, it's $1,500 to replace a toilet, and we have to tear out part of a wall and to change the style of toilet that we have to put in, because those don't exist anymore.
There's no chase for these restaurants or for these.
There is on the west bathrooms. There is not on the east bathrooms.
So is it an occupancy thing? Is it just the fact that there's too many people in the building?
No, we're still below occupancy level of what the fire marshal deems
I'm not worried
safe
about fire,
level.
though. I mean, is our facility able to accommodate a large crowd? I mean, is it the crowd and not necessarily like a hot tub show? If we put the hot tub show in there, there's probably not gonna be the same crowd that they would have at the Fiesta Coronation Ball.
Absolutely. We hold court in there every Tuesday for Shawnee County. I'm not sure what court it is. You know, there's 150, 200 people that probably come through the facility. They all use the restrooms. There's no issues then. The problem becomes when you have larger groups that are, you know, just constantly flushing those toilets. It becomes a bigger issue then.
So, I mean, maybe we need to, maybe that's what we need to do, is limit the amount of people that we can have at an event there. And it doesn't cost us $200,000, but maybe we find a way to relocate those types of events to the Great Oberlin Station, or Heritage Hall, or anything like that. I mean,
But I guess I go back to, it's $125,000 to address the immediate needs of the facility. Again, putting it on an advisory board to look at what's the long-range plan. So.
I will say the Coronation Ball, I'll be the first to admit, we should have hosted that in Exhibition Hall. And I think that is where a lot of our plan moving forward is going. You know, to case in point with the community Thanksgiving dinner, we're looking to transition out larger events out of that space into the spaces that are more appropriate for them.
But isn't part of the problem too, the cost fee associated with the rental of the facility? A lot of nonprofits, a lot of community organizations aren't able to afford the cost of Exhibition Hall, of how it's priced and the fees that are associated with it, but they might be able to afford Ag Hall. Doesn't that play into it?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does. It certainly does. The partnership we have with Community Thanksgiving Dinner Foundation is a bit unique. The partnership we had with the Coronation Ball is a bit unique in the sense that there is a partnership there, not just a rental contract. So in those instances, we have a bit more flexibility of where we can produce that event content. And that's why we've started to transition some of that content inside Exhibition Hall. But yes, to your point, it is more affordable to utilize either Ag Hall or Heritage Hall for those smaller and more community event-based activities. But you know, we also want to put our best foot forward and produce content in a space that there was a substantial amount of investment in, and trying to you know, show the community that we have very fantastic facilities as well.
Sorry, can I interrupt for just 1 second? Sorry. I just want to make sure we're remembering that the CIP that we're talking about, it won't be able to start until 2024. So if we're looking at something that's immediate, which I'm hearing said, that would maybe be more of a contingency funded item, if that's what you guys are looking at doing. I just want to make sure we're not thinking something's going to happen immediately and wait 6 months.
Well, I didn't anticipate the amount of work that you have and trying to get I don't know if anybody's tried to hire a plumber here recently, but it's just getting on the schedule now for a major renovation project may take 6 months. So I'm going to make a motion for $125,000.
I have a couple more questions here.
Sure.
What's the occupancy of that building? We're looking at 500?
It's about 1,800, I believe.
1,800.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know the age of the building?
It was built in 1946 or 1948. The records that I have on it aren't the greatest in the world. According to the county website, it shows that it was built in 1925, but that's actually Heritage Hall, so there's a lot of ifs on that.
And like the current HVAC system, is it, you know, the age of it?
Half of it was replaced 4 years ago. That would be the east half, after we had a copper theft. there in 2018 or 19. We replaced one outside AC unit and reworked the interior unit to make that part work. The west half is 1982, I believe. That AC unit that feeds the west side is early 80s. It's a 40-ton unit. It would be about a $70,000 replacement cost. Part of that was in the 2027 foundation and HVAC repairs.
All right, Commissioner Cook, do you have a
Motion for $125,000 for agricultural hall.
no? Do we want to go that high? I don't know. Well, if you had 125, what would you do? What kind of improvements would you make?
With 125, there wouldn't be any cosmetic improvements. We could paint, stall dividers. We know how paint's going to hold on that, though. That'll get chipped off and written on just as easily as the existing ones we currently have. That would replace all of the toilets, the main sewer lines coming off of those banks of toilets. It would replace the urinals that are built into the concrete, tear those out and replace them with modern toilets, new lighting for those spaces. I know that the east bathrooms, the amount of light fixtures that were put in there originally were not really sufficient for the space. Maybe some paint on the walls. Some of those walls are tiled, so we wouldn't do everything in there. Sure. The main cost really is the toilets, the plumbing, and the concrete work and tearing out that exterior wall in order to replace those urinals. That's the biggest chunk of this $169,000 for custom sheet metal.
Guess I would be all right if it could dovetail into future improvements to the building. And I don't know what we're maybe looking at a major renovation, but I don't know.
I'd rather spend $100,000 on subsidizing rental costs to Exhibition Hall for those events, for those community events for nonprofits. How many days rentals would $100,000 get us?
I'd have to do some math, but it would be a substantial amount for that space. You're probably looking, between 15 and 20 days of event rental.
15 to 20 days. Would that cover the majority of your rentals, or do you have, how many? I don't know how many rentals you have each year.
It would certainly cover all of the events that would be large enough to cause any concern issues. Yes.
Well, we do have a motion for 125 for the restroom renovations. I'm probably not going to second that. All right. All right. Let's. Do you have a motion that you'd like to make?
Well, I don't know if we can do it in the CIP.
Nope. We wouldn't be able to do it in the CIP.
It's not a.
But when we get to your budget, I might make a motion that we start some sort of a fund for community events to help out. I think there's a lot of good events in the community that we need to, it couldn't hurt that if we're gonna relocate them, to help them out a little bit with the costs of rental, so it's still affordable venue.
Yeah.
But I think we ought to give the advisory board some direction of looking at this facility and seeing what kind of improvements we need to make, a major overhaul of this building, and let them help guide that project. So.
I will say between the two satellite buildings that we have with Heritage Hall and Ag Hall, Heritage Hall by far is much more popular amongst event goers and or patrons or event producers. It's used quite a bit more for things like private parties, wedding receptions, weddings. That's why when we go through the CIP process for this 5-year plan, we really try and prioritize the buildings that are not just generating the most revenue, but also have the most desire and the most need for occupancy. In our opinion, or in my opinion, I won't speak for the rest of the staff, but in my opinion, I think the money is better suited to be spent towards Heritage Hall and making that space a bit more of a showcase piece for our satellite buildings. It's used, significantly more than Ag Hall is throughout the year.
I think another piece of this puzzle might be, we don't know what the hotel, we don't know what that's gonna look like, or improvements may did. Maybe some future building, or renovation might somehow dovetail into that. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out, but,
Sure.
it's a possibility, so.
Something to consider for sure. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve $25,000 and you fix what's broken. If there's faucets that don't work, replace them. If there's toilets that don't work, replace them. But a full-scale renovation at this time, I don't think is warranted. So, that's my motion, $25,000.
I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Mays, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
We have one nay. Motion carries 2-1.
Thank you, Commissioners.
I would move for the allocation of $55,000 for the court furniture. This is to address the magistrates in their renovated court space.
And remind me, they don't have furniture for?
They have
Old furniture?
They have older furniture that they've been able to acquire from surplus within the county. This is a conference table, this is a reception area, their office assistant's desk area. It addresses their furniture within their magistrate's renovated space in the old county commission chambers.
Okay. I'll second that. Motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. All right, let me get that. All right, what does that leave us?
I'll move for approval of the Shawnee County Tactical Command Vehicle updates of the $48,175 as requested.
This vehicle, what's its current condition?
It's
This is the one we just got.
But does it need a lot of, apparently some upgrades?
It's just technology, right? I think it is.
Yes, I think this is
I'll
to add
second.
modules to it.
I'll second it.
Did you want me to
Well,
address
yeah,
that?
if you could.
Nelson Castile Emergency Management. The technology in it is 2015 technology, so this would help us update some of the computers, monitors, the modems, stuff of that nature. As Commissioner Mays said a couple meetings back, it was a steal that we did get it from the city of Topeka. It is in good condition. This will just get our technology updated to where it needs to be. We've used it several times recently, most recently the Stampede, and so we were able to see, yes, we need to increase certain things or move around certain things.
All right. There is a motion on the table by Commissioner Cook, seconded by, oh, good question, fine.
Nelson, and Commissioner Cook, would you guys be amenable to just rounding that down to 48,000, an even number?
I think so.
Sure.
I don't,
We could find that 175,000
It makes it easier
somewhere
to,
else if
you
we
know.
need to. All right, $175.
I'll amend the motion.
to 148,000.
No, just
No,
48.
just 48,000.
Just
I'm
48, just 48.
sorry, 48,000. And you seconded that?
Uh-huh.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Mays, for 48,000. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. 48. Okay. So that brings up to,
Yeah. The only two items then left, originally requested from 2024 cap outlay, would be the Parks and Rec master plan, and then the 200,000 that was deferred Heritage Hall. And you can leave that deferred, that's just from the original request.
Would you be willing to scroll down to the bottom?
590,000 out of the $2.5 million.
Yep.
Okay.
590. And the Heritage Hall, 200,000. The Heritage Hall HVAC system, is it pretty well gone? Is that, or is it, what are we looking at there? That seems like a lot for that building.
Yes, so the Heritage Hall HVAC system is original to the building from 1985, 86, when the fairgrounds were closed down and they renovated for the Expo Center grounds. So the AC compressors that are outside are 38, 39 years old, something like that, as well as the units inside the facility.
And did this also include windows too? Or?
Yeah, the 100,000 that was approved, I believe.
Address the windows.
That was just
That
the
was for the
HVAC system. The other $200,000 is for new windows. The seals on those have gone bad, so all the windows in that facility look like they're cloudy and dirty, but it's on the interior. It's moisture on the interior of the panes of glass. That part was for replacement of those, as well as some concrete work and potentially looking at replacing the gazebo with a more modern structure for weddings and get rid of the dated look of that facility, as well as a bunch of interior updates, new chairs, more suited for private events, weddings, just to compete a little better within the marketplace.
You know, if we're going to shuffle more
I was thinking the
rentals
same
over
thing,
to
yeah.
this place, maybe we should look at finishing this up. So I'll make a motion that we bump that up $200,000.
I'll second. Can I ask a question real
Sure.
quick though before we, is the lighting in there okay? Are we on LED there?
We are not at LED. We did do an upgrade back in 2013 to energy efficient fluorescents. They're T8s, not T12s. So with the size of space that we have there, yes, we could upgrade to LED. We do have color changing LED lighting for the ceiling. So as you have a wedding dance there, you can change that domed ceiling to whatever color you'd like. And that's typically how most events utilize that space. The fluorescent lighting really doesn't come on during wedding receptions and dances. That's more for if we have to have court over there on Tuesday for one reason or another, or a similar type small trade show.
Okay,
So those don't get utilized very often.
okay, understood. Thanks.
Clean up lights. I have a motion on the table, but I don't think I have a second yet.
Yeah, I second.
Oh, you did? Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner Rippon, seconded by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. Those opposed, motion carries 3-0. Okay, so that's...
The only item remaining is whether or not we are going to address the Parks and Rec master plan at
That's
this
it.
time.
Tim, you...
I would close the capital outlay for 2024 at this time. We may still come back to it as part of the overall budget, but I would close it at this time.
Is that a motion?
Hold on. Jennifer's got a question.
Yes. Do you want to approve the projects that are listed in federal grants so that if they do get the funding, they could move forward?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we need a motion on that?
Would
Yeah,
you?
we
willing
would want
take
to
back
approve
your
those.
motion? We have a motion on the table already.
Oh, okay.
I'll take back my motion
All right.
to be all-encompassing then.
For all the federal grants?
Yes.
Okay, I will second that. So motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. So that covers all the grants.
Yes. And those projects would come back. This approves the funding for them.
Right.
Those projects would come back to you for the actual approval of the project themselves.
Okay. All right. And then you still have a motion to close the,
Well, it would be to approve that as it is today, but we still have the authority to amend it
Absolutely.
as part of our
Yep.
budget.
And I just wanted to confirm that the 2 items that are listed on new debt are still going to be deferred for the official vote.
Yes.
when would we discuss those then?
The item for the Grange Hall and for the
Yes.
Dornwood, I think those are still part of our ongoing discussions as we have from the remaining $10 million.
Right.
And how we do that. And I think that we need to get our GMP for Family Park, we need to get our GMP for the Oakland Pool to see what we have left, and then we need to look at what community resources we have for those projects, and I think they're both valid and they both have merit in looking at addressing and going forward.
But when would we make, do we have a timeline on making those decisions?
As quick as Tim can do it. Because, I mean,
Be kind of up to the chair, wouldn't it?
I could, I suppose.
The question was, do we have a timeline where we have to decide how we're gonna spend that bond money?
right, I mean, we have to know what we have remaining.
Right, I mean, that, yeah, Tim Laurent,
So we
Parks and
just wait
Recreation
till-
Department. Yeah, I think you were spot on with your synopsis. I think we need to get a guaranteed maximum price for these 2 projects, and then we'll be able to then start turning our attention to what we want to try to finish with the remaining funds. I don't see any other, I don't see any other way around that. I think that's how that's gonna work, and I would assume that we would be able to do that. As I said earlier today, I think we're getting pretty close on the Oakland Pool project to defining what it is we're gonna do. And so from that point, we should be able to come up with a guaranteed maximum price relatively soon. We had our first meeting for Family Park yesterday, so I think that's a little bit a ways away, but I also think it's a little bit more of a cut and dried project. So I don't think it'll take as long as Oakland has taken. So that's a long-winded response to saying, I think within the next, I think 3 months is a pretty liberal guess. I think we should probably do it before that, but I'm gonna say here today, by 3 months from now, we should have a pretty good idea on that, what we have left.
The numbers for the Dornwood improvements, where did those come from? Or-
Those were done, those numbers are a little dated. I think those numbers were done in 2000, it was either 2018, 2019. So on the estimates that I've included, I have bumped those up from the original estimates to try to accommodate for some inflation, but I think we still need to decide what the scope of that project is. You know, how much do we want to do? Do we want to do all the fields? Are we more concerned about the concession, restroom facilities? And I think we'll want to work with the folks out of Dornwood, the ones that are running the baseball, softball program out there on what they want to see.
The Grange Hall, I know the Friends of Old Prairie Town have worked with an architect. I think they have some pretty good numbers there,
Oh, yeah.
so we do know that. I guess we just have to wait to see how the family park rolls out and
Yeah.
Oakland, and go from there. All right, yes?
Would you guys be open, since we've got a little bit of extra from what we were originally planning on spending on this, would you guys be open to putting a little bit extra into the miscellaneous small capital outlay projects in case we need it there? I mean, I know that's something we'll be doing a different day, but it seems like it's always pretty tight.
Can we hold off on that as we get to our overall budget discussions? So that we do that as our part of our overall budget. I'm not opposed to that, but let's hold that for now.
Okay.
Just like looking
Yep.
at the
Sure.
subsidy of events being held in Exhibition Hall, we need to look at how that fits into the overall budget for 2024.
Sounds good.
What do we have left now? What are we up?
It's 390,000. So the total that out of the capital outlay fund is currently at 2,110,000.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So
All right.
my
Well,
motion, and is there a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Okay.
And motion's been made by Commissioner Cook, seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. So table that for a while.
Just want to confirm that that means that you are approving the capital improvement plan, which includes all of the funds, including the 2024 capital outlay.
Yes.
Yes. And then we'll defer the new debt for a later time. Okay. Now, we can come back and make alterations to the CIP before it's all totally finalized.
That's correct.
All right, next item.
Item 5, public comment.
I don't have anyone signed up.
I signed up.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
I don't have the sheet for that.
I thought there was gonna be discussion today on your resolution, homeless in the park. Is that for today?
Not today.
He can still do public
We can still do a comment, though. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Robert Soria, lifelong resident, Topeka, and lived in Oakland for 22 years. I'm about half a block away from Santa Fe Park and 2 blocks away from River Road. So we're very familiar with the homeless, situation in the parks there and the traffic that goes on. First of all, I want to make a comment. Commissioner Rippon, I'm grateful that you're attempting to do something. Oakland residents and residents of North Topeka have been noticing these issues for several years. And, it's interesting and perplexing that when different voices enter into the discussion from different parts of, Topeka and Shawnee County, now all of a sudden, action is being talked about. So I'm grateful for it, but at the same time, kind of scratching my head because, people that live in Oakland have been talking about this for years. So anyway, grateful. The second thing I want to talk about is hopefully you would consider taking a look at chronic loitering by the homeless in our parks, especially during the park hours. Now, I know sometimes, I know that when the parks are open, people are allowed to be there. However, Commissioner Cook, and this may jog your memory, we had a situation at Santa Fe Park where, I got a new dog in February, so I walk my dog and I go by that park at least twice a day, walking, and then I drive by. And notice there's a person hanging out under a shelter every day during park hours. He was also sleeping there at night. So I emailed Commissioner Cook and Tim Laurent, and they got the person to stop staying there overnight. However, he was still loitering there every single day for about 2 months. He finally moved on, but the issue is with me, aligned with yours, Commissioner Rippon, is the aesthetic. This person, had luggage with him, bags, and, we see other homeless in Billard Park and Santa Fe Park that are walking around with bags, shopping carts, and things like that, so there's definitely an aesthetic issue. The main concern with me was a safety issue because we don't know what the mental state, of these people hanging out there are. The third concern for me, and I put this in the email, was This person was hanging out underneath the shelter that the Oakland NIA has spent a lot of time to push to be built and worked with the Parks Department to get that done. And that person was sitting there every day during the day while the park was open because there was electricity there. This person was using the electricity to charge his devices. And of course, there's shade there. And then there's a water fountain not too far from there. And this is in Santa Fe Park. And then the restrooms are open. So this person pretty much had it made and was sustaining himself there. And so that's a concern of mine too, is what is the spirit of the parks? What's the definition of the parks? What's the purpose of the parks? This person was tying up a resource every day, that shelter, and not allowing the public, the general public, to come in and use that shelter while that person's there. So that was a concern of mine. So I know the discussion is it's difficult to remove people from using the parks during park hours. However, for those of us that live around these parks, we know, who's coming and going, who's visiting the parks as intended for recreation and leisure, family gatherings, and who are chronic users of the park, using it to sustain, to live off of for whatever their situation is. So I'm hoping you would take that into consideration as well and take a look at that, because this kind of also ties in to the whole swimming pool issue in Oakland at Biller Park. One huge reason why Oakland residents don't want a splash pad out there is because even though you're going to build a fence around it, that's the plan, it's less secure. People can freely come and go. And then with the amount of homeless, chronic homeless that are hanging out at the parks, our concern is they can freely, go in there. There's going to be lots of children around there. But, hot days like this, they're probably going to hang out there because there's water flowing. So that's a concern of ours. Whereas if we have a pool that's going to be fenced, most likely there's going to be a building, changing rooms. And then the other barrier is someone has to pay to enter into a swimming pool. So that creates more of a secure barrier for us. And then you're going to have employees there, somebody working at the window possibly, and you're going to have lifeguards. So there's more people there to make it more secure. So yeah, this chronic homeless issue of these the loitering in the parks during park hours, this is one reason why we don't want the splash pad. There's other reasons, but so that kind of ties into this issue too. So I just want to leave you with that suggestion. So as we embark on this, and I know the city is doing their own thing as well, I hope you guys coordinate together, because like you said, if this resolution goes through, the homeless, you have more authority to remove homeless from parks. Where are they going to go? Most likely, they might end up on the river. We might see more traffic at other parks, like in Oakland, Santa Fe Park or Biller Park. So that's a concern.
The resolution you're talking about hasn't been completely vetted yet, but we're working on that, and I think it'll address a lot of issues, but it's complicated, and I wish there was an easy to understand right answer, but there really isn't. You have so many reasons there's homeless anymore, and I know our parks, they get abused as much as anybody with the homeless situation, and hopefully the resolution will give our law enforcement a little more teeth to get these people to move on or move out of the parks, and they've become more of a nuisance. We had a recent problem with a woman getting bit by a dog that belonged to one of these homeless people, and that certainly we can't have that. And there's been people harassed on trails, and so hopefully this will be a first step in addressing some of the problems. Like you say, though, you move them out of the parks, then where do they go?
Yes,
Down
sir.
by the river. Every square inch of this country is either privately owned or publicly owned, and they're not campgrounds, so it's an issue. So.
At the same time, addressing the homeless is an important issue for this county, and we should address the issue of homelessness, unsheltered, mentally ill, alcohol, drug addiction. But at the same time, we have to look at the rights of private citizens. If you choose to go to Santa Fe Park on a sunny day and read a book for 2 hours, is Chief Cope going to be coming up to you and telling you you need to move along because you've been there for 2 hours? If your family is playing horseshoes and the neighbor across the street gets tired of hearing the clang of horseshoes, and that's a complaint, are they going to come over and say, hey, you need to move along because you've been playing horseshoes for 2 hours and I can't hear my TV. And so we have to look at balancing the use of the park by the public as well as safety concerns. All of those are very complicated, and I don't want to get into just a slippery slope that says you can't be in the park for more than 2 hours. Like I say, I think that's not the issue.
Yeah, I think we're looking more at the guy with the grocery cart who's spending the night. Yeah, that's a little different. I agree, you know, you have a right to be in the park. I've had people complain that there were children in the park, believe it or not. And I have. And so, yeah, you're right, it's a balancing act. But I think this resolution goes a long ways to defining what camping is and what their property is and how that should be handled, things like that. So I think it's a good step in the right direction. But like I say, we're still massaging that resolution, so
Sure.
hopefully we'll have something in a week or two.
I appreciate it. And like I said, you know, for those of us that live around there, you know what it is when you see it, you know. And I know some people do call in to complain about things, you know. However, you know, if there is an issue with somebody chronically being out there every day tying up a resource, you know, maybe there are ways to deal with that at some point.
Yeah.
So, all right.
I agree, thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Anyone else in the public wishing to speak? Seeing none. Next item.
Number 6, administrative communication.
All right.
Betty Kreiner, Director of Administrative Services. I will just mention to the public that next Thursday, we plan to start our discussions on the 2024 budget. And this will be preliminary. Nothing will be decided until after the public hearing. That will be on August 21st.
Thank you.
Morning, Commissioners. Nelson Castle, Emergency Management. As you can tell, it's a beautiful day out there. We have an excessive heat warning in effect today and then tomorrow through 9 p.m. So be sure to hydrate, stay in the air conditioning where you can. There's a lot of resources online, including on our social media sites, also the county social media sites that help you out with any heat ailments that you might have. So, and if you need me, I'll be in the air conditioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson. Anyone else? Commissioner Cook?
Not today.
Mr. Mays?
Yeah, I'll just sort of kind of go off the conversation we just had. I just returned from the National Association of Counties conference and attended a lot of workshops while I was there, but you know what, the homeless problem that we're experiencing is certainly not unique to us, is what I found out. There were really 3 themes of the conference that were prevailing over. I mean, there were a lot of topics, but these are the 3 things that really were the biggest source of frustration for counties across the country: homelessness, mental health, and attainable housing. I mean, there is a lack of housing inventory across the nation right now, and what is there is unaffordable for most people. For a lot of people, I won't say most, but a lot of people. And I also figured out that nobody's got a magic solution for any of it. I mean, it's a quandary that we're in, and I mean, the only thing we can do is continue working on it and doing our best. But you know that there are communities that have thrown a lot of money at it, and the problem just gets bigger. There are some communities that don't spend anything and it doesn't go away. I mean, it just gets, so I think it's definitely something we're going to have to continue working on, but I just want to say, you know, it's just not unique to us. And so, I mean, we've got to do what's best for the community, but we also need to be mindful of constitutional rights and things like that as well. So that's all I've got. Thank you.
All I have to add is that there is an election going on now. You can do early voting. It's mainly city council seats, and doesn't apply to everybody, but if you have a city council member, there's a preliminary election, get out and vote. So that's all I have. Next item.
Item 7, executive session.
Okay, we do have a need. Oh, we're not? Okay. We do not need an executive. Thought we did. I guess we're adjourned then. Thank you. I didn't.